Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It is Wednesday. That means it is Teaching Tech Wednesday. That's the working title anyway. It might turn into Tips and Tricks Tuesday, but in case you're wondering why you're seeing more than one video in a week from me, got a new content schedule, hopefully hitting all the important points here. Setup Sunday, probably the highlight of the week for most people, but the other stuff equally important, especially if you're new or learning or just want to hear my opinion on certain things, hear what I have to say. Tomorrow's going to be just alts focused. I wanted that in a completely separate video because in the past I've done alt videos that people have really enjoyed. Altcoin extravaganza, I think I called them back in the day. Thursday, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to be doing yet. And then Friday's kind of a podcast day with Ledger. So like I've done in the past on my personal channel and on BNC, I've done videos on indicators that seem to be really well received. So I'm going to revisit some of those, share what I've learned, what's working, what isn't working, what's changed. But I didn't want to necessarily repeat these one for one. I mean, they're pretty good. They stand up the test of time, right? Some of this stuff doesn't really change. The chart pattern stuff I'm definitely going to hit on hard. That is hands down the single most important thing outside of the cloud that anybody can learn, in my opinion. I mean, I'm chart pattern king, cloud king for sure, personally, for my personal trading. This is the BNC list. There are 42 videos here, right? So there's tons of stuff. If you don't want to wait, if you need things to watch today, I'll put this in the video description below. So there's a few places I actually trade today, and that's CryptoWatch, Kraken, Coinbase very minimally, and I use TradingView to do most of the analysis, obviously. As a US citizen, you don't really have many places to go as far as the centralized exchange side of things. I already have a CryptoWatch tutorial, so I'll spare anybody this information, but again, tons of data here on how to trade using CryptoWatch. You can connect CryptoWatch to multiple exchanges. It's a direct companion to Kraken, but unlike TradingView, you can directly trade on crypto exchanges. TradingView might have that capability. I know they connect to brokerages. I haven't tried with crypto stuff specifically, but that's the one benefit here. Why would you use CryptoWatch over TradingView? Is that you can trade there directly. And if you haven't gotten the hint yet, the first video in the series of Teaching Tech is just going to be talking about the tools of the trade quickly. Now, there's another popular video I put out if you want some serious cringe from 2016 on TradingView. TradingView's changed a lot for the better. It's constantly changing. They're constantly shipping more and more stuff. They're moving stuff around. So this video may not be up to date immediately by the time you're watching it, hopefully years later, but much of this base information is very valuable. So I'm going to focus this video on TradingView because I get a lot of questions specifically about TradingView. Oddly enough, many people ask me, what colors do you use or what is your theme? The first thing I always do, if you can't already tell on most of my videos, I'm using dark theme or gray or non-white, anything non-white, okay? And you can select that right off the bat in your profile here. Definitely make an account on TradingView if you haven't already. It's free. You don't have to pay for anything. You can use it to organize your ideas, follow other people's ideas. I have a premium pro account. They're not paying me to tell you to sign up, okay? But it's very much worth it. You will thank yourself down the road, especially if you stay here. First thing you'll see is trading ideas, some streams. They've added a ton of social content type stuff. I don't look at much of this anymore. Most of my exposure is on Twitter, which is why you see me posting most of my charts directly to Twitter versus saving them on TradingView. But that's another good habit to get into, is to have an idea, put it in stone, right? Especially if you're new. If you're new, you're definitely more apt to move things around, right? Curve fit. You got to be honest with yourself, especially if you're following a specific setup or a specific trade. You need to get a sense for how often does this trade work out? How often does it fail? Where does it fail? When do I know that it's failed? What do I do when it's failed? What do I do when it succeeds? One of the hardest things in trading is the psychology behind it, because many people love to hold a position to zero, but absolutely cannot hold a position when it's in profit. They just can't. Immediately, it's $20 in profit. They want to let it go, right? If you're one of those people, you definitely have to break that habit sooner rather than later, or you won't be here very long, okay? That's just how it works. You need to get used to that. Real quick on the sidebar here, the watch list is another very powerful tool. These are just things that I'm watching. On the bottom here is regional banks, some TradFi stuff, some crypto stuff on the top here. And all this may seem obvious, but it's just a good place to like put it so you see it every day, right? I don't always pay attention to, what some of this stuff is doing, but to see it, like Coinbase, for example, right? I didn't know it was up 12% today. Good to know. Maybe I should check it out. Coinbase is an interesting level, and I'll show that in a second, where there's a great example for alerts on TradingView, okay, which is another great thing to have. This may differ slightly for the paid versus unpaid version. I'm trying to find my alert. Yeah, there it is. This may change slightly for you depending on paid or unpaid. You may be limited a number of alerts, but I'll show that in a second. And then the last thing I just want to mention, there's a lot of stuff in the top as well that they've added over the years. Probably the most useful is on the macro side of things is the economic calendar. The screener is in rough shape, let's say, but I use it occasionally. If you're trying to screen, let's say, 30 alts in different pairs and you want to see where's there a TK across with price above cloud, that's something you can do using the screener, looking for specific trades or setups on specific exchanges, right? Let's say I want the RSI above 50, I want a bullish cloud, I want to be above the 200-day moving average, I want MACD bullet, whatever it is, right? You can set that all up using the screener. One other thing I'll mention about the ideas, if you're a newer trader especially, I think it's really important to get exposed to as many different types of analysis as possible, just so you have a baseline understanding of what may speak to you from a trading perspective, right? If you aren't a cloud person, if you're not a trend person, if you're a breakout person, if you're a low time frame person, whatever it is, you need to find out what works for you, what you're comfortable trading, what you're able to do, and just occasionally perusing these ideas and just following, right? Follow one that looks interesting and see how it plays out and see why it played out the way it played out. And if it played out the way they said it would, or if it didn't, right? There's short-term ideas here, long-term ideas here. But if you're very, very new, this can be very helpful. Also dangerous, there's no holy grail other than the Ichimoku cloud, but there's no holy grail that many people will fall into a trap of, adding a bunch of stuff to their chart. But what's good about the ideas page is this stuff will bubble up, kind of like, upvotes or whatever on Reddit. So hopefully you'll be exposed to the better ideas among them. And then just as an example, this is my own page, right? You can see I checked this. I thought it was funny. I joined 9 years ago and I felt like I was late at the time. I felt like I waited way too long to make an account. It was like 2014. I compared it to Photoshop. I just didn't understand anything. It was just too hard to use, but that's definitely changed dramatically, obviously. But one other thing you can do is follow people and see, right? Are they on the money most of the time? Are they full of baloney most of the time? Are they a great counter trend indicator? People love to counter trade me, apparently. Awesome, right? What does it matter? But you can go in here and you can follow timestamped ideas that people can't mess with. And ideally they're giving, a better rationale than me maybe on certain things, but I'm saying like price will remain bearish until we're out of this pitchfork. Great. This one was DXY before the breakout based on this inverted head and shoulders. And we all know, what happened after that. Just craziness. But this is the power of like setting your own ideas or watching other people's ideas and seeing how they evolve over time, seeing how they age over time. This is the economic calendar. I have it just set to the US, but you can set it to whatever countries you think are most relevant. And the more crypto is sort of connected to the macro side of things, the more the calendar is certainly relevant. There will be a time again when the calendar is irrelevant completely. Potentially in 2024, potentially when rates come down, potentially when inflation gets under control. If you're in that camp, maybe you're in the camp that inflation is going to be 3% to 5% forever, whatever it may be. But this is a really good breakdown of all the economic data prints. Back to the crypto side, they have a heat map as well. I really like to watch this mainly on the high days or the low days when we're just selling off. It's an interesting data point. Do I use it to trade directly? No, not really, but it's definitely fun to watch. Sometimes, and you can change the volume. You can take Bitcoin and ETH off of here if you're an altcoin enjoyer, right? You can curate that however you want. This is an example of the screener. And again, you can curate all this. I'm just showing this for people who don't necessarily know that it's here because I don't hear people talk about it often, but these tools are here if you find them valuable. I'm more of a visual person. So even though a screener would be helpful to go through like 30 to 50 alts, let's say, based on certain parameters, I prefer to just look at them visually myself than rely on a screener. Some more quick things I'll mention. If you like my background, the watermark, right, the font, the colors, all that, one other thing you can do is go to one of my ideas, click the share button, and then click make it mine. That'll make a copy of all of the settings into your version of TradingView. And that way you don't have to worry about changing specific parameters or going into the settings yourself. You can just take that and run with it from there. Probably the single most powerful thing about TradingView compared to other platforms is the ability to look up virtually anything in any place in the world, crypto, TradFi, whatever, right? And we can compare exchanges against themselves. We can look at the index, the TradingView version of the Bitcoin index. There's an ETH version of that as well. You can look up market caps as well. I think it's under CryptoCap, and then a specific token, in this case Bitcoin. They have total 2, total 3. So there's a ton of stuff that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I think when you see it and understand what it is, you can start to incorporate it as a data point into your trading decisions. One other really cool thing you can do here, this is actually an equation you can do in this search bar directly. People can get crazy with it, right? If you wanted to look at some sort of liquidity index with like the TGA, the reverse repo, blah, 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 right? You could make that directly in TradingView, much like you can through Bloomberg. This specifically is Bitcoin relative to the S&P. And this is before we even start to talk about indicators, right? But any indicator you want is here. Favorite the ones you like. Some of what I use isn't here anymore. And if you're listening to the video this long, I'll give you some super secret deep alpha that I don't see many people talking about as well. But there is a PineScript editor in here. If you're not a coder, that's okay. If you're a coder but you don't know PineScript, that's okay. One thing you can do is look at a specific indicator. And again, this is going to change for people depending on whether or not you have Pro. I don't know exactly what the freemium version looks like, but you can add a script to your chart. You can open it in the editor, if I can find that, and you can access the editor through this panel here. They've changed a lot of the buttons around, so sometimes it gets a little frustrating to figure out where things are, but you can look at the code yourself, and then you can add or subtract things, get some flavor. It's not difficult, but you do have to know sort of what you're doing. But the ultimate alpha is now that we have ChatGPT, you can go to ChatGPT, type in, I want this blah, blah, blah indicator written in PineScript, and it'll just give it to you without any effort at all. So if you want a specific indicator written out, one thing that ChatGPT is really good at is the coding element. Now you could probably do a 6-week course on TradingView, but I'm just going to share one more thing, and that's the alerts piece. Again, depending on whether or not you are free or freemium, you'll have access to panes like this. You'll have access to separating out the indicators here. This is correlation coefficient, RSI, right? You can add tons of different indicators. But if we pull up Coinbase here, specifically on the 2-day, all the timeframes are here. If you want to add a specific time frame, you can star it, and it will put it in your quick bar up here. And the last thing I want to show is the alerts portion. So we can add a horizontal line. Here are all the drawing tools, obviously, pretty self-explanatory. But if we add a horizontal line or a range or multiple lines, whatever we want to do here, coin has massive regulatory risk dependent on that case with the SEC, obviously, which may take years to resolve. I don't know. But in the meantime, I do like the inverted head and shoulders. I like the cloud position here on the 2-day. And one thing we can do is make a line on the chart, right-click that line, and you can add an alert to a line specifically. And I always choose once per bar, crossing, crossing up, down, whatever. We'll just select crossing for now and create, and there you go. You can forget about it until it crosses your specific level if you're tracking a chart pattern with a horizontal in this very specific case, right? I really don't care about it until it's at that horizontal. Realistically, 86, 87 probably looks even better. And as far as, some deep alpha here, 120 to 140, is such a thing even possible? Potentially, if it sort of figures itself out before this SEC case. One other thing you'll notice is I am on log. Some of the indicators get crazy when you're on log and you select pivots, for example, because the pivots go all the way down. So that's all I have for this one on the inaugural Teaching Tech Tuesday. Let me know what you want to hear about in the comments, because I can go as deep as you want. I can go as broad. We can talk about trades using specific indicators as well. I've done that in the past. So let me know. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.